everyone and welcome back to my channel. I am pre-filming this way ahead of time. Today is actually May the 19th and you won't be seeing this until the middle of June, I think. And that's because while you're watching this video, I will be so busy with exams and I know ahead of time that that will be the case. So here we are, pre-filming. Anyway, I have decided to give you some book recommendations today, both for those of you who love big books like me, but also for those of you who tend to like shorter books. And I think it's summertime, so sometimes you tend to grab for that shorter book just because it's easier to carry with you on the beach. But some of us also really like to have a big book to dive into during the summertime when we have time to relax and time to read. At least more time, I think. So this video is hopefully for everyone, and let's just dive into the titles. I'm going to start with the smaller books, and I've decided on some books that I haven't talked about a lot on this channel recently. First short book is The Persian Pickle Club by Sandra Dallas. I haven't settled on a certain page count in order to fit it in my small book category. I've just settled on some books that look small to me, and this one does. So this one seems to be very shallow of a story because it's about this group of women who like to gather in order to knit. It's the middle of the summer. I think it takes place in the southern state, and as I said, it seems really shallow once you get into it, but let me tell you, this book comes with a twist and I loved it for that. And also it's a plus that the cover has a summery feel to it. Now, I couldn't do this video and mention short books without mentioning my absolute favorite, and that is The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I realized that this story might not be appropriate for the summertime because it takes place in December, but that being said, it's still an amazing story about growing up and not wanting to become an adult. And I think that theme goes for all seasons. So I still think that you would benefit from reading it during the summer. And it takes place in New York, and it's about Holden Caulfield, who is a very pessimistic guy. So now I have warned you. The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. So this is for, I think this is more for a young adult audience, but as an adult, I still very much appreciate it. This is another one of those books that's about growing up, and we get to hear about Charlie, who is a very silent guy who has trouble socializing, and he's just a very peculiar sort of person. He meets these friends, and gradually as the story progresses, we realize that some things have happened to him in the past which have made him the way he is today. Next book is also a young adult book, and that is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. Now this one is another one of those books that's about the twist. So we hear about some friends who are on vacation on an island, I believe, and then gradually we realize that there is a big surprise waiting for you. Some of you might be able to guess what it is before you reach that surprise, others won't. I wasn't able to guess it, so I thought that it was a brilliant story and definitely one I would recommend as well. And this one takes place during the summertime, so it's perfect if you want to read that kind of books right now. And the very last short book I have to recommend is The Sense of an Ending by Julian Barnes, which is more about an elder man reflecting back on his life, I believe. Now, it's been quite a few years since I read this book, so I can't say for sure that that's the exact plot, meaning that of course I've read it, of course I remember it somewhat, but sometimes when it comes to all of the books that I read, some of them I remember more vaguely than others. But actually, that's kind of funny because this story is exactly about that, not really remembering what has happened in the past, I believe. Anyway, I do recommend it. I remember loving it, and it's another very short book, perfect for going to the beach perhaps. So let's move on to the 5 big books I have selected. The first one being this one by John Irving, A Prayer for Owen Meany. John Irving predominantly writes very big books, I think, and this one is one of his better ones, I believe. It's about this young boy and his friend who are at a baseball game, and then all of a sudden his best friend accidentally kills the main character's mother. This book also becomes very much about religion and about believing in destiny and what is supposed to happen to us in our lives. Because this best friend says that, well, it was God's will, so what can I do about it? I thought that I would also include some fantasy on this list. So here we have the Name of the Wind trilogy, which is actually called the Kingkiller Chronicles trilogy by Patrick Rothfuss. Now I say trilogy, but here we only have 2 books because the third one is yet to come out. For now, these 2 books are amazing. This series is about Kvothe and his life because he is now an old man, but he reflects back on his life and he tells us about what has happened to him. And let me tell you, this is a fantasy series and a lot of amazing and extraordinary things have happened to him. This series also contains one of the largest libraries of the world, which is always amazing to read about. Next we have The Robber Bride by Margaret Atwood. It doesn't look that big, but it's actually over 500 pages. This one is about that one person in your life which has a way of poisoning your existence so that no matter what you do, no matter what you say, you can never seem to satisfy this person, or you always feel uncomfortable being around this person. It's a very mysterious piece of work and it's also macabre, but it's highly entertaining and definitely one of my favorites by Margaret Atwood. Next we have Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell, which is a classic and which I'm sure a lot of you have heard about either through the book or through the movie. This is definitely a big book, one of those novels that you can spend weeks and weeks on reading, and it's so much worth the time, I believe. It's about America during the Civil War and it's about our main character who has a hard time finding her beau, meaning finding her big love. She's a very stubborn girl, she's a very heart-pleasing girl, and I love her, I really do. She's definitely a character and this book is so worth the journey. The last book I have to recommend, which is a very big novel, is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I am a huge Donna Tartt fan and I think it's unfortunate that she has only published 3 books so far, but those she has published have been amazing and this one is one of those. It's about our little boy called Theo who lives in New York with his mother, but all of a sudden a tragic accident happens to his mother and he is then left alone and has to grow up and find his way in life by himself. Donna Tartt is known for writing beautiful fiction and you have to read it for yourselves in order to see what I mean. And that is it for my big and small books recommendations. I hope you enjoyed this video. And also let me know in the comments if you have any recommendations for me, because I'm always on the lookout for more books. Preferably big books, but I can also deal with smaller books. Thank you so much for watching and happy reading.